I don't know the reason I don't see the other Rashid and what's the name of the other?
David.
No, we are live.
David.
We are live now.
No, you cannot see David now. Start from now. In 15 seconds, you cannot see.
Okay.
Okay.
So, presence in New York, welcome the audience online, and thank you for everyone that make it happen. Also, I want to thank you, our guests, for accepting our invitations. So, Axel Amari, founding member of the Union Republic de Kabylie, URK party, and Rashid Al-Qassi worked for the promotion of the Kabyle and Amazigh language, especially in the literary field, and is also involved with the TQ5 media, a Kabyle television in the fields of political, culture, and history. You are welcome. Azul Filawan.
Azul Filay.
Azul Filay.
So our debate will be in the specificity of the governance of the Kabylie, the challenges and the perspective of terms, political and history. So before we starting our debate, let's discover Kabylie with the video that we thanks TQ5 for sharing. Rashid, with your experience, can you tell us more about the Kabylie?
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Press ENSA, the International Press Agency, for giving us this opportunity to explain to their followers, basically in America, what is Kabylia and how things are going on in this part of the world. In answering your question, Rabah, you have to know that Kabylia is part of what we call in our language Tamazgha. Tamazgha, which has several names throughout the history, dating back more than 33 centuries from what human memory has been able to tell us. Within these 3,300 years, Tamazgha has given several names that the different colonists, such as Romans, Vandals, Arabs, Turkish, Spanish, French, have given to this subcontinent located in the north of Africa. Those names are Numidia, Barbaria, Maghreb, or in Arabic, Maghreb, just to name a few. The real name is Tamazgha, or as Americans call it, simply North Africa, which make more sense than the term Maghreb, used purposely by the French political establishment, academia, and media altogether. Personally, I found the term of North Africa more logical in order to avoid any confusion with Middle East, as the term Maghreb is misleading since it means western part of Arab world. This is eventually completely wrong, as the Mazra and Arab world are two completely different entities in our planet, geographically and historically speaking. To come back to our main subject, to your question, Rabah, what about Kabylia, let's start by explaining Kabylia land and its people. So, first, it is important to mention that Kabylia is only one part of Tamazra that denotes all the lands in northern Africa. Those are basically territories nowadays managed by states named Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Mauritania, Mali, Niger, and Egypt. To those territories, we should include as well Western Sahara, source of conflict actually between Morocco and Algeria, and of course the Canary Islands, the southernmost autonomous community in Spain. Kabylia, you have to know, is annexed to Algeria in 1857 by French colonialism, 27 years after Algiers was taken in 1830. Moreover, it is France which in October 14th of year 1839 gave the name Algeria or Algerie to the central part of Tamazra that Bourbon King Massini once called Numidia. So, Kabylia, located at the edge of the Mediterranean Sea, is a cultural, natural, and historical land considered as part of Algeria since 1857. As I mentioned it before, it is part of the huge mountain range called Tel Atlas in Berber, in Tamazight, Atlas Natali, or in Kabyle as well, that include a well-known Georgia mountain. To finish, Kabylia covers several provinces, which are basically Tizu, Bigayeth, and parts of Tubiret, Gumerdas, Jijel, Sétif, and Bojboarich, which are actually departments of Algeria. Gouraya has actually two national parks called Gouraya and Georgia. Just to finish, Rabah, if you don't mind, area-wise, you have to know that Kabylia is little larger than Israel, which is, as you know, a strong country in the world. It is 2.5 times larger than Lebanon, which is huge, which is well known in the world. Approximately, it is 2/3 of Switzerland and 80 times larger than the Republic of Malta, which is a state in Europe. This is to name only a few countries recognized by United Nations in order to get an idea of the size of Kabylia. In terms of population, Israel, Switzerland, and Kabylia have approximately the same number of inhabitants, which is around 8 million. So hopefully I answered your question, Rabah.
Thank you, Rashid. Axel, you want to add something?
Yeah. Thank you, Brother Rashid, so that to introducing our nation, introducing Tamazra the way it is. It's written everywhere in history. Now with this media, it's very easy to find out what is exactly meaning the North Africa. And I would like to add something. I would like really to mention something very sensitive. As we native of North Africa, it's high time we reject fundamentally the word Maghreb. which is imported from the Mashriq, Eastern countries. And as we say, Africa should find its north. We can call it Temesra. We have several names which gives us kind of freedom and leave ourselves again and make our Temesra free again. So when we go through the history, the first French leader of this state, Napoleon III, landed in Algiers, 17 September 1860. 3 years after, 3 years after Kabylia lose its independence, means 1957. Napoleon III project is to extend Arabic kingdom, obviously under protection of France. This, I mean, I'm still speaking in the 18th century, 1860, the first time Napoleon landed in Algiers. So this is very significant. I think is very significant point. So Napoleon project is to extend Arabic kingdom, obviously under protection of France, from Algiers to Baghdad. Means that he would like to extend his empire, kind of empire, from Algiers to Baghdad. And first plan is to let the nation of North Africa disown themselves. And how? In another word, the natives metamorphosed into Arabs. We should disown ourselves and just accept being Arabs. So this one I would like, to mention, and there is as well one point. Kabylia is concentrate of Amazigh heritage Judeo-Christian civilization. And look at this as well. The area of Kabylia is 3% of Algeria, but half of its army is stationed there, over 100,000 men. Imagine 100,000 men army in Kabylia. This is, it looks like they are not there for our protection, rather than being there so that to colonize Kabylia. This is fundamentally how we look at the situation, which is we feel, it's a shame to land like Kabylia to leave this kind of disaster today. So I can give you the word again. Mr. Rashid or somebody else would like to give other opinions.
Yes, if we look about the situation, the current situation in Kabylia is critical in the terms of political, security, and culture. Can you tell us a little bit about the situation right now in Kabylia?
Yeah, when we speak about security situation, as we know, we can see the roadblocks exist only in Kabylia. Kidnappings, terrorist acts on our soil to sully our reputation and assimilate us to Islamist terrorism, that the Kabylie people are anti-Islamists. I mean, we see the government of Algeria still pushing and pushing to bring Salafism, radical Islam in Kabylia, which actually we don't accept. We didn't find our ancestor accepting radical Islam, so nowadays we will accept this radical Islam. It cannot happen. What we see there, Algeria is promoting Salafism, and so in terms if you would like, I can speak about economy as well and cultural disaster, what's going on there, closing theater, closing cinemas, and sometimes turning them into mosques. If we take like from the only Bouteflika, when we look at, he built thousands and thousands mosques, which this never didn't build any other leader of Algeria. So I
the
mean,
regime is still the same.
Disaster. I mean, we have hope. It doesn't mean that now we are doing, I mean, we are weeping or something like that. We have a hope. That's the reason we are here to work on it. But really, we need to work harder and harder. We lost almost everything what we have in there as aspiration, as everything. We lost even our respect. So we have really to urge and find the best solution.
Rashid, on the other culture level, what do you think?
Rabah, before answering this question concerning the cultural level, it is important. I would like to add some points in addition to what Axel said, because we cannot understand the present situation at three levels: political, security, and cultural, without understanding what happened exactly in the past, in the recent past. Okay, basically in 1857. In 1857, when, as Axel mentioned it before, when French colonialism conquered Kabylia, that is 27 years after the conquest of Algiers. That happened in 1830, and then other countries of what called later Algeria. That is the name, by the way, given in October 14th, 1839, according to the letter sent by General Schneider, French Minister and Secretary of State for the War, to Marshal Vallée, who was the Governor General of what was used to be called French possession in Northern Africa, not Algeria. Until 9 years later, the name of Algeria came into the play. After several rebellions and revolts led by mainly the Kabyles, such as Sheikh Mokrani, Shaddad, and even a woman warrior fighter, Fatma Nsoumer, against French military, Maréchal Randon, the Kabylie migration until that time, after for the rebellions, if you wish, the Kabylie migration to France started in the beginning of the 20th century, which means the early years of 1900. Such immigration allowed certain Kabyle elite to be formed politically in France through what we call through unions, workers' unions or syndicat in France. This made it possible to create a political organization called Étoile Nord-Africaine or North African Star. It happened in 1926 with a pan-Amazigh vision, as its name and suggests, North Africa Star, Étoile Nord-Africaine. Unfortunately, the desire of the Kabyle founders of such organization, Étoile Nord-Africaine, to cast larger or a wider net outside Kabylia, they did the mistake of placing a non-Kabyle named Msali Haj, who has Turkish origin, at the head of Étoile Nord-Africaine. So Msali Haj, after having transformed ENA, Étoile Nord-Africaine, to a party called PPA, Parti du Peuple Algérien in English, Algerian People's Party, then after it became MTLD in French, Mouvement pour le triomphe de la liberté démocratique in English, Movement for the Triumph of Democratic Freedoms. Both those two parties, PPA then MTLD, defined in their acts Algeria as an Arab Muslim country. What does it mean? Those denying the origin, the Amazigh substrate of the various Algerian populations, including the Kabyles. Being not happy with such ideological orientation, Kabyle rose up and caused what is known in the history by the Berberis crisis of 1949. One had to wait until 1954, more precisely on November 1st of year 1954, the day when the great Algerian Revolution started against French colonialism, mainly led by the Kabyles and their Amazigh neighbors of the Shawi country, eastern of Algeria, of actual Algeria, of course. Let us now focus on one of the leaders of the revolution, whose name is Aban Ramdan. Aban Ramdan is one of the main heroes in modern Kabyle Algerian history and is considered as the architect of Algerian revolution against French colonialism. Aban Ramdan was among the organizers of what we call Congress of Somam. Somam being in Vgarith, east of Kabylia. This Congress held on August 20th of year 56. This is to organize. The purpose of such Congress of Somam is to organize the revolution and to define future Algeria, which is planned to be a known military, a known theocratic, social, and democratic republic. What does it mean? Basically, the future, the planned future Algeria, in the vision of Aban Ramdan and his friends at that time, basically, such a republic would be based on cultural, linguistic, and confessional diversity. So, unfortunately, what happened almost 1.5 years later? What happened? Aban Ramdan was assassinated on December 27th of year 57. 5 years before the independence of Algeria, he was assassinated by those who confiscated the independence of Algeria that has been liberated from the French colonial oppression, mainly by the Kabyles and the Shawi peoples. Since then, since July 54, the Independence Day, if you wish, the cleavage between Kabylia and the central power of Algiers has been accentuated with the confiscation of power by Ben Bella as illegitimate first president of Algeria, and Boumediene, who was at that time his minister of defense before becoming himself the second illegitimate president of Algeria following his coup d'etat against Ben Bella. Both those two illegitimate presidents put Algeria under the supervision of Jamal Abdel Nasser. At the time, he was president of Egypt. So, post-colonial Algeria, after French colonialism, became like a new, for Kabyles and Berbers in general, a new colonialism, since Algeria became the province-like of the Arab world by rejecting the dimension of Amazigh culture. So what happened after that? Unhappy Kabylia has become then a dangerous region for the central power of Algiers. Since the independence of Algeria, Kabylia has always expressed in many ways dissatisfaction and discomfort being under such dictatorship of Arab Islamic affinity. So the peak of such anxiety came on April 2080 with the well-known events of what is called the Amazigh Spring in Kabylia. So today, the situation has worsened since 2001 with the murder of nearly 127 Kabyles, including young people, and thousands of injured, some seriously. Since that date, Kabylia has claimed regional autonomy, and then some have radicalized their position by turning into an international organization by calling for the freedom of the independence of Kabylia. However, to finish my point, Kabylia is crossed by various political currents, ideological currents, between those who prefer the solution of regionalization, others regional autonomy or federalism. All these political currents and views share the same value, which is taqbaylit, or Kabylie in English. This is a mountain, which is a mountain virtue based on consensus and egalitarianism society. Of course, I missed to mention the independence orientation, like Axel Party, like Mark. They are looking for the independence of Kabylia, and we're coming to this later. This is then just briefly to more. The modern history of Kabylia, which explains the unpleasant situation of Kabylia. So I don't know if I do still have some time to back to go further to talk about. Yes.
Yes. By what's happening now in Kabylia in terms of political culture, is there the status does Kabylia needs to be free, Axel?
Yeah, as a founder of UKR, you are a guy. You know, some people are speaking French and so on. You know the names.
Yeah, like he said, Rashid, about the situation, and now we at least we have something like for a future for the Kabylia to be free. What the status that need now?
Yeah, as we know that now in Kabylia we have two movements for independence of Kabylia. There is MAC after 2001, after Algeria government killed 128 million because they went to Algiers so that to ask for their own fundamental rights, to ask for democracy. So from that time, Kabylia tried to find another way to get its own freedom. So during that time, Mac asked for autonomy. We believed that we can get this autonomy. But right after, after 10 years, we didn't get nothing from that, for that autonomy. So afterwards, right now we have two political movements for independence of Kabylia. We have MAC, we have ERK. Both of them, they have different strategies how to get this independence, and we believe in it. It can take time. We don't know. Still, we are working on it. We are believing that geopolitical situation are changing day by day. We have to stick for this independence because we believe in autonomy. I found that my grandparents lived for federalism of Ban Ramdan, Karim Belqasem. Unfortunately, these two guys that Kabylia gave from the heart of Kabylia killed by Algeria. And then I found my parents and me when I was young defending autonomy. Me personally, I believed in autonomy for 10 years. And in the end, we found out the Algeria government, we have this solution, independence. Because in government like Algerian, and what we autonomy needs democracy, needs some still I mean, need this kind of democracy. We cannot have federalism, and we cannot establish autonomy in a country of Jacobinism. Actually, now we are seeing for so long our Tamazight, our language. This is shame to ask for something like this. It's really fundamental. Or sometimes hear me in Europe when I speak to European. They say to me, who are you? I say, okay, I'm from Kabylia, and I think I speak French. It's my mother tongue. I say no. They say, but okay, Arabic. I say no. I'm Kabylian. What's that? But some people, I mean, they understand it. Who cares about history? Because here in Czech Republic, they lived the same situation before 1918. Here in Czech Republic, before 1918, Czech language was just it was not official language. And they got right after the independence of Czechoslovakia. Without independence, because here in Czech Republic, we take it like example, before First World War, it was here Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the official language in here was German, because the emperor Franz Joseph was Germanized. So official language was here German. Without their own independence, they cannot get it. That's the same like the countries of Yugoslavia. They didn't have their language as another, as official language till they got independence in after the collapse of communism in 1989. All this territory, Eastern Europe, they got independence in 90s and 1993, 1992, right after they adopted their own languages. So for us in there, it's really shame what we are living
but
there. We are living that
yeah,
we have.
but Axel, is the if we ask Rashid about that, is the right solution for that?
Sorry, but again, yeah.
No, Rashid is the
Yes.
yeah. I mean, it's the
Sorry,
right.
sorry. What?
No, but I
Rabah
want
is asking me the question.
yeah about,
Rabah is asking me the question.
what you say for the independence or autonomy for the Kabylia is the right solution. Rashid, what do you think is the right solution?
For us, we believe in, yes, I think
No.
for us, actually the reason
Yeah.
we founded these two movements.
Yeah, Axel, I understand. I understand your beliefs that it is the independence, but what my question is for Rashid about is that the right solution, Rashid? What do you think?
Okay, Rabah. Before answering this question, I would like to connect your question to the previous one, because we have to understand clearly what is the situation of in Kabylia cultural-wise, at cultural level. Okay, so at the cultural identity and more precisely linguistic level, all that post-colonial Algeria did after the independence in '62 was to erase the Amazigh identity throughout Algerian territory, with a special focus on Kabylia, which is the main driving force behind this identity consciousness. This is how Algerian regime put the whole package on the Arabization of all generations of Kabyles via school and the media, including the written press, newspapers and magazines, several radios and TV channels. So the Algerian regime, even if it has nothing to do with religious morale, it has played a lot on Islam as the main platform to accentuate and strengthen the Arabization process by building mosques, Islamic institutes, and schools. Thus, in Kabylia, instead of investing in industrial projects and factories that create jobs, the construction of universities and hospitals, what happened? Algerian regime only builds mosques directly or indirectly via its Kabyle Islamist relays in Kabylia. So the provocation went so far as to encourage Arab companies like Ooredoo, a Qatari telecommunication company in Algeria, to finance a literacy campaign, what they call it, a campaign d'alphabétisation in French, محو الأمية in Arabic, in Kabylia for our old Kabyle women. It happened. So it is about advising for our old women to cut them off from their Kabyle linguistic heritage, knowing that Kabyle children and even babies, the process of Arabization is done easily through the schools, nurseries, or kindergarten, les crèches, on appelle ça en français, in French. See, even so, dozens of TV channels which present them educational programs of Arab Islamic essence or core. Between the two generations of those old Kabyle women and their grandchildren are the intermediate generation comprising their children, men or women, and women, of course, who have already been victims of the Algerian school, mosques, and various media. For example, the many Algerian TV channels, about 60, I counted a few years before.
Rashid, excuse me. Rashid, excuse me. We know so about the situation right now, but what we can do so for the Kabylia to be free?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, okay, I come to answer the question. So, given this
Yeah.
drastic situation that I have just described, but it is more than clear that the Kabyle language is really threatened to be one of the languages which will disappear, and through it, all the other
Yeah,
Amazigh languages will
yeah,
disappear. This is,
uh,
I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to answer your question. This is,
yeah,
by the way, the main objective of the Algerian, okay, regime, because it knows that Kabylia is the main vehicle of identity awareness. Okay. Now, this being said, since it is well known in linguistics that a language needs a state, this is to answer your question. Now, this evidence arises the absolute necessity that Kabylia must provide itself with its own political institutions, such as a parliament and a government, and of course its ministries, mainly the most important ministries, which for the survival of the Kabyle language, such as, for example, the Ministries of Education, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Communications, along with Ministry of Higher Education and Research and scientific research that will promote our language and prepare modern and efficient instruments and tools to teach all school subjects, matters, if you wish, at the all pre-university academic levels. Now, how Kabylia can provide itself with its own political institutions, and that is your question, such as the parliament and the government. That's another subject that Kabyle, politic, elite, and its intelligentsia should focus on. Of course, there is besides the scenario of the independence, which is respectful and accepted among the parties or the movements being in that option. Of course, there is other options. Of course, there is one party which is fighting for the autonomy of Kabylia, which is, I guess, its name is RPK, Rassemblement pour la Kabylie. And of course, there is other people that are fighting for another approach, which is the federalism. So we have to consider all those options, not only the independence, but the main point is that Kabylia should provide itself with its own institutions, basically parliament and government. That's the answer for your question, Rabah.
okay. So we know exactly that the Kabylia has a land, has a language, and has a culture. Is there any project to make it concrete for what we like, for people that they're calling for the independence, or what the people that they call for the autonomy, or the others for federalism? Is there any project in to be concrete, Axel?
Yeah. When we look at actually here in Europe, take it like Catalonia and Scotland, we can ask what's the reason they are pushed to ask for independence. And we know that in Europe, still we have our fundamental things, and we have many things to change, and we have still oxygen, to breathe, but still, as we see, for this modern population, they see it not enough. Really not enough, because when we give them freedom, they can make more. They can step up and create better and make their country in better place. So what about in Algeria with this kind of regime? So for us, we stick to independence, because we cannot be, I would say, half free. Either we can be free or not free. So we are peacefully by freeing the Kabyles in their heads and with the framework of international law. That's the way how we make our steps and get our freedom.
Rashid, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think to make this project concrete? What do you think?
What Axel mentioned is one option. I told you, Kabyles are divided between those who are looking for independence, which is the only solution that remains for us as Kabyles. Others, as I told you, there is other options. But what is important to know, which is the good thing, is that Kabylia is ready to have its own institutions, government and parliament. It is unacceptable to continue with the Jacobin regime, the hyper centralization of the management of the country from Algiers. Hence, status in Kabylia is imposed. It remains now, it's native to be determined, as I said, maybe at first step. It's my point of view, and maybe a point of view of many Kabyles as well. I don't know how big they are in terms of percentage, but there is those who are looking for at first step as to a regional autonomy with broad prerogatives, which is recommended to avoid the violent explosion. A transitional phase is needed throughout the country during which the mechanism for peace passage would be put in place. Ideally, who will be implementing this? Ideally, the Algerian authorities have an interest in putting an end to Jacobinism by giving full powers to Kabylia by setting up transitional bodies in order to prepare the conditions for moving towards free elections, which would lead to the election of a regional parliament, Kabylian parliament, if you wish, from which will emerge a government resulting from the elected majority. Kabylia must have its own institutions. That's the point, because it has its own vision of the world. It does not have the concept on various points like other Algerians. For example, the place of religion and decisivity, and its removal from politics, the status of women, the question of identity, the language of teaching at schools, and the status of languages in general, because Kabyles, they will teach in Kabyle language for sure, but they are not reluctant to other languages, basically English and German, French, I don't know, etc. Now, to answer your question, how to succeed, to make it succeed, this option, general option of having a government and a parliament, the pressure must be made with the convergence of political forces acting in Kabylia to agree on the minimum, what we call in French le SMIG. Priorities must be held or defined, such as the case of education, which is now, as stated before, is ravaging Kabylia with Arabization policy and process. This convergence of political forces, while focusing on international pressure, because the central power of Algiers could only weaken if the Kabyle Union is set around a common project. Algerian power is quite sneaky with its policy of what we call divide and conquer. On the other side, the involvement of all intellectual and cultural elites, Kabylian cultural elites, is essential in order to make visible this option of a special status, which ideally could initially take the form of regional autonomy at that point in order to avoid the violence, which is the predilection ground of the Algerian regime. So the initiation, to finish, of a dynamic convergence of political forces and elites is an absolute urgency to promote this option around which the broad consensus emerges. Each generation has its own mission. Of course, it is a process open to other eventualities, as Axel mentioned the independence of Kabylia option, if the local and international political circumstances will allow it. Again, in my opinion, that's my last word for this topic, the best compromise to avoid violence and satisfy the majority is to go as first step to large autonomy for Kabylia. This has every chance of succeeding if consensus will emerge between the various political and elite actors of Kabylia around this project, or a particular status which will allow Kabylia to establish its own institutions. Having your own government and proper parliament is not a small achievement, it's a huge achievement. Just look at the level of development of Catalonia in Spain or Quebec in Canada, as well as at the level of countries which have adopted federalism as mode of governance, such as Germany or Switzerland, for example. I can understand, Axel, that this cannot happen with a regime, a dictatorial Arab Islamist regime, but let's try it, push it further. If it doesn't work, of course, the independence option will come as an evident solution for what will happen next. That's my answer for your question, Rabah.
Can you give me one word?
Rabah,
Could you give me a word, please?
Yeah, sure.
Losing, just one idea. Thank you. We see in Kabylia, why are we seeing it like our Kabylia is ripe for independence? Because there we have different political tendencies. We have in there independentists. We have there autonomists. We have there those who are promoting federalism. We have in there, different religion. We have there secularism. All these aspects, tendencies, make Kabylia ready to be independent. Whereas in Algeria, they don't have this kind of tendencies. This language, what we are speaking now between me, you, Rashid, and the other friend, it's typical Kabyle language, it's typical Kabyle mind. For us, it's true. We are looking for different solution. But Algeria, they have only one solution. Just they say we have in there Islam, and Islam refuse democracy, going straight against democracy, is incompatible with democracy, and all what they are saying that Algeria is one indivisible. Indivisible. All of them, they are saying like that. We cannot work in Kabylia. I like to see Rashid different from me in his mind and in his everything. I would like to, but Algerians, they have their own problem. They have one political tendency. This one makes them not ready to be free. This is the difference between the two things that cannot meet in any time. All what we are thinking, because we believe as Amazigh, free people, when we free Kabylia, then we have at least a first step to free all Tamizgha. But without freeing ourselves, the other ones probably will be between hands of the way they are. They cannot get out of Islamism. They believe that they are Arabs. They believe that they are, Muslim. I mean, we are not against being a Muslim, because they are, and we have in Kabylia. The Islam that we have in Kabylia is different. Is extracted from somehow from Sufism, but in other ones. But now we are getting more and more. We are having this radical Islam, which is destroying our community. We cannot stand it anymore.
Yeah, we have.
Thank you.
Sorry, Axel. We have only 5 minutes left. So about
okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. So the international community can show its solidarity with the Kabylia. Axel, what do you want to say something?
Yeah. Actually, thank you. Actually, next week we are calling to join March of Makanavad on October 25th, 2 p.m. place the Stalingrad in Paris, and we will call for to free Lunis Hamzi and all Kabylie independence activists imprisoned by Algeria colonial. So let's go on Sunday, 25th December, to Makanavad gathering. And as well, we have another meeting in Marseille. So we are calling for assembly URK, another 25th October in Marseille, so that we condemn imprisonment arbitrarily in Kabylia territory. And I finish my. I'm sorry to finish my word like that.
Yeah.
I express you. Sorry. Are you still in the? Okay. Personally, I express the UK solidarity with the French people deeply affected by the assassination of Professor Samuel Paty, who's beheaded, which is not acceptable at all. Not at all acceptable to see this or to hear this in our, in our ears. That's totally shame. So we appeal to the international community to support Kabylia demand for independence.
Yeah. Well, what about Rashid?
So this is what we are wishing for Kabylia and for the rest of people which are not yet free. We are believing in freedom. We will have success. We can make our nations better. But without being free, it doesn't take to a good situation.
Rashid, you want to add something?
Yes. Okay. Axel mentioned the professor, teacher, French teacher Samuel Paty. what happened to him, and then unfortunately it's bad news. So what I'm going to say, for France, Western countries, and international opinion, they must know that stability in the world is to a large extent will be assured if it takes place in this immense great subcontinent that is the Mazra of North Africa, considered as the center of the world, neighboring. Everyone knows that Kabylia is the locomotive of System Mazra from all points of view, and more particularly from the universal values which are intrinsic to its nature. The Mazra is geostrategic, as it is in the center or in the middle between Europe via the Mediterranean Sea, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, and the two Americas via Atlantic Ocean that separates them. Finally, where I want to arrive is that the great powers such as France, United States, Europe in general, in the world would benefit from taking into account or into consideration the Kabyle situation, especially at these moments of doubt and turbulence worldwide induced by COVID-19 and political Islamism, which is taking worrying proportions from which no country is spared, being strong or weak. Helping Kabylia to take charge of itself in terms of governance, nevertheless not to impede, to obstruct its progress towards the construction of its destiny, would be one of the keys to a situation towards global peace in the world. As a reminder, Kabylia and at a larger scale, Mazra have given a lot to humanity, eminent personalities such as Saint Cyprien, Tertullian, Saint Augustine, a well-known theologian and philosopher, Apollonius, the first novel writer, Zinedine Zidane, the famous soccer player and coach as well, Idir as the Kabyle singer. This is just to name few of eminent personalities. This is to say that Kabylia is able to contribute in the world in terms of peace.
Yeah. And maybe we need to mention as well, for the professor for the doctor here in Germany, we to shake the hand of his colleague, another doctor, and actually he was expelled from Germany. This is shame from this statue as a doctor to refuse to shake the hand of a woman. This is what I would like to say. So, Rabah, you have your word, I think, or Rashid, or...
I'm done.
So I think we're going to close this debate. Sorry, I'm David Anderson, and we thank you all the guests to participate today. I think Rashid, and thank you so much for being on the show. And I'm think we're going to follow with more debate later on Kabylie. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Your pleasure. Be well.